Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the latest hullabaloo on our CPTPP accession from Brexiteers who are loudly proclaiming that it will mean we cannot rejoin the EU now. Well, apart from the way in which they're contradicting themselves, it's worth going over just exactly what this membership means in terms of joining the EU in the future. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So Kemi Badenoch, on behalf of the UK government, has formally signed our treaty with the CPTPP, confirming our membership now. So I think my first point would be this. Brexiteers are hailing this as a mega trade deal. It's nothing of the sort, but just look at the optics. Boris Johnson, the then Prime Minister, made a grand show of signing the withdrawal agreement and then later on the trade and cooperation agreement with the EU. Big fanfare, big book, big pen. So CPTPP membership represented this super awesome trade deal, which will finally unlock the golden years of our post-Brexit future. Why wasn't Rishi Sunak signing it? Why was it left to a middle-ranking member of the cabinet? Why was the fanfare? The Sunday Express gave it everything they've got, of course, but even when Badenoch went on Kunzberg's show to publicise it this morning, she didn't seem very confident, did she? She didn't seem confident that it would do much. She said that people will feel the benefit if we use it. Oh, more qualifiers. Where were these qualifiers during the Brexit campaign? In other words, if people don't feel the benefits, because she's leaving the doorway open for no benefits at all here. If people don't feel the benefits, and they won't, it's the fault of businesses not taking advantage. As if businesses are collapsing just to spite the Brexiteers. It's the same line Boris Johnson used about Brexit in general in 2021. If they're not finding we've given them the tools, you see, and if they're not taking off, it's their fault for not having my vision. On Sky News this morning, for example, they were pointing out that Asian media were describing our accession as cosmetic. This is why, despite the Sunday Express's best efforts, even our Brexit government can't be asked to make a meal of it. Many members of the public don't even know anything about it. And that's probably for the best, because it's only going to act to disappoint when it fails to deliver the hype. But I want to focus in this video on how Brexiteers are framing this deal in terms of joining the EU. So I've discussed the weak source nature of the deal in the past, and I can do so again in future when we've got actual trade data coming in. No point covering old ground now. It's done. All that's left is to see the physical data come rolling in and confirm yet again that the experts are right. And what did the experts say? Outside of the EU, they've said, you might as well have it. It doesn't do any harm. You may as well have this agreement as not, but it's not really going to do a great deal. People will certainly not notice benefits without a microscope. But Brexiteers are saying that this shuts the door on joining the EU. Now, I'm going to have to point out a bit of a contradiction here, because I talked recently, you may recall, it may have been as recently as yesterday or Friday or something, but I talked recently about how another Express article was highlighting fears being raised that Labour would push us back into the EU if they win power. Well, which is it? Because this is not only the same paper, but the same basic Brexiteers. One day they'll say, CPTPP makes it impossible to rejoin the EU, slams the door on joining the EU. But then the same people in the same paper will say, oh, but if you let Labour into power, they're going to take us back into the EU. Which is it? It's just possible that they're not the most consistent of commentators. Doubtless, it won't be more than a few more days before they're back to say, oh, Labour are going to threaten our precious Brexit again. But let's look at their claims a little bit more closely, because there are two claims being made. First is that this membership shuts the door on joining the EU in the future. Second claim is that this will unlock loads of trade. Now, both claims are fairly easy to debunk, although we'll have to wait a couple of years for the second one. But that's fine, because the time will pass anyway. It's done, and the time is going to pass regardless. But as to shutting the door on joining the EU, it depends exactly what they mean. Actually, it doesn't, but it's fun to play along. If they mean that it's legally impossible to join the EU now, no, it's not. We can terminate our membership of the CPTPP whenever we like. And because it's quite a loose trading arrangement, like it's nowhere near as beneficial as the EU, not just to us, but to its members. The process takes 6 months. You write a letter saying, oh, we'd like to withdraw our membership, and then 6 months later, you're no longer a member. It's really that easy. And the thing is, there was no mandate for joining it. There was no referendum. There was no manifesto promise. So there was absolutely, the government just randomly decided to do it. So there doesn't need to be a mandate to leave when the time comes either. It's also not at all messy. It's not like the Article 50 process of leaving the EU was quite messy because we were very much integrated. But we can remain in the CPTPP for as long as it takes. There's no need to rush out of it. We can stay in there as long as it takes to repair our damaged relations with the EU. And then, when we fancy joining the customs union with the EU again, which is incompatible with CPTPP, we just cancel it. We just leave. We just say, sorry, we're off. No fuss. But let's say they mean not that it's legally impossible to join the EU, but just that our membership will be so awesome that we will never want to join the EU. Behave yourself. There's a good chance, first of all, that we will have been in the CPTPP because we're in it now. That's it. It's all unlocked, done. Businesses can take advantage tomorrow. So by the time we have a general election, we'll have been in it for at least a year, or about a year. If they have it next May, June, maybe just under a year. But it's not like Labour are going to leave immediately either. So we will have been in for at least a year. So in Labour's first year in office, we're going to start getting trade data on that one. It will not be reversing our fortunes. In fact, there's every chance it will be impossible for anyone to highlight the positive impact without the use, as I say, of a microscope. And this is where Brexiteers are opening themselves up to looking a little bit silly again. The thing about Brexit, like all other insane right-wing nonsense, is that it is more persuasive when it's never actually implemented. This is why real grifters never win power. They stay well away from power. Nigel Farage, he would never want to be a government minister because then he'd have to put his money where his mouth is. Much better to say how great things would be if only people would adopt my ideas. Well, just as people are not impressed with Brexit, they're not going to be bowled over by CPTPP either. In 2 years' time, we're going to have data allowing us to put it to the test. They won't be able to blame Labour because it will be data from when the Brexit government was still in power. Badenoch won't be able to blame anyone else either. She won't be able to blame businesses because she will be the Secretary of State overseeing this first year. If she's going to say, oh, but businesses didn't realise the potential, well, she's the minister who could have told them. The thing about Brexit is that the longer it goes on, the more data you get showing the damage. Also, Brexit got to hide a little bit behind COVID and the war in Ukraine. But the longer we go on, and if other global disasters could just calm down for a second, the more we will see other countries bouncing back, but Britain getting stuck in the mud. We're already seeing that this year. The UK is struggling to make the same recovery that comparable economies are. This will become more obvious next year and the year after. And we've got time on our side. There's probably at least another year until the general election. You can't rule out later this year, of course, but it's probably next year, which means another year of a Brexit government. Then in Labour's first term, they're going to have it's the first few years, they're going to have their hands full trying to rebuild trust with the EU again, negotiate agreements on trade and security, deal with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement review, and I hope join the Pan-European Mediterranean Convention. Maybe reinstall Erasmus while we're at it. But by the time Labour are working on their subsequent manifesto, the one that goes into the following election, we will have had several more years of Brexit failing to improve people's lives. The only improvements they will have seen will have been in parallel with convergence with the EU, not divergence. What will the Brexiteers have then? Sure, they'll be moaning at Labour for throwing away the benefits, but all people will see is where their lives are getting better, it's in parallel with convergence, because they will have seen year after year of worsening living standards under the Tories, and then improvements under Labour, who will have made a big show of wanting to work more cooperatively with the EU. Where are the Brexiteers going to hide when the trade data for CPTPP membership comes in? And it's not like it'd be difficult to unpick. Sometimes trade data can be difficult to unpick. This will be easy. What will our net exports be worth to those countries in real terms as compared to the growth in exports to countries outside the CPTPP? If you need to use differential equations to even identify it, it's just possible the general public won't be impressed. Cosmetic. That is how the deal is being seen outside the UK. Cosmetic. Window dressing is not going to fool people that Brexit was a worthwhile project any longer. They're already thinking it's failed. Even people who still support Brexit recognise that it is failing badly. This isn't going to change their minds. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.